Good morning. Good morning. Hi, my name again is David Theus, and welcome to the episode number 23 of the Saturday morning coaching call brought to you by the Small Business Patriot and Northeast Florida Business Alliance, the Alliance. Again, I'm David Theus, and my co-host is Peggy Lynch out of St. Augustine, Florida, with 21K promotions. And we have a special guest today. For those of you tuning in on YouTube, watching us in video, please follow along, like and share, and subscribe. You know the game. And if you're listening on the audio file today via our podcast on Spotify or wherever you might be listening to your podcast selection, there's a whole host of them. Welcome and thank you for tuning in. And of course, like and share maybe with a friend or a colleague or other small business owner that might find this information beneficial. What I want to do is set the stage a little bit about what we're doing. In the last 22 episodes, you've seen Peggy and I and a host of other people from time to time come on and bring up questions and concerns about their small business and how to address them. And I myself, as a small business coach or consultant, if you will, have opened the channel for people to, let's have some peer advisement going on. There might be someone else in the room that's got some experience in the questions that are being asked. And we want to have an open discussion. And then at the end, I try to put a bow on it, as I like to say, and stick it up on the shelf to wrap it up. But by no means am I the smartest guy in the room. If I say that enough, probably not enough, because it's true. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. And so I'm smart enough to realize that other folks have got some information that could be very valuable to not only myself, but folks in our organization, the Northeast Florida Business Alliance. And so we want to take that information and share it with others and share it with you who might be listening or watching, and hopefully you can gain some benefit. So having said that, today we have a special guest. His name is Jeremy Eaton. You can see him right wherever he's located on your screen. And he's with a firm called Majority Strategies. And their tagline, if you will, is "We are problem solvers who specialize in influencing the opinion and behavior of voters, constituents, and consumers." We're going to talk about today the consumer element of this because we are the small business patriot, and we want to tailor our events toward that discussion, helping our small business owners be more productive. And just one last piece of the setup here. Last episode, again, I want to double down on this. Peggy and I started a conversation. I think Peggy brought up a topic, just like she always does every week, about marketing and different channels and how do we as small business owners strategize, maintain, keep all the plates in the air, and how do we do that? And so we shifted gears last week, excuse me, and I had this discussion about thank you and bringing in gratitude and appreciation into our business. It was just a word that was on my heart. And maybe in another episode, we'll talk about the benefits of that this week, where I deployed some appreciation and gratitude amongst some of my customers and prospects. And it was awesome this week. So I encourage you to go back an episode and listen to episode 22. That'll be a good setting of the table for that discussion in a future episode. Okay, that's housekeeping, guys. Jeremy, welcome. Peggy, welcome. And Jeremy, if you don't mind, take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, what you do, and why, kind of thing. How are you?
Good. Thank you, first off, David and Peggy, for having me on this. I'm excited to be here. It's a real pleasure. To get more into, I guess, what I do nowadays, I work, like you said before, with Majority Strategies. We are a full-service digital marketing firm. I work on the strategy planning side. So I'm what they call a sales engineer. So I work on behalf of the sales team as well as more on the digital marketing side. So I'll work with our organic team. So like the people that post ads, that type of work, run social media accounts. And then I work mainly with what's called ad operations, which is the team that actually implements the advertisements. So I'm on the strategic planning side. So I help tell them what to do, how they do it, and why they're doing it, that kind of thing. So that is a pretty general idea of what I do nowadays, but I work regularly with clients. I explain what's going on in the data side of things.
Okay, so I'm Peggy and I are a little more senior maybe than you are, and this
No,
is
no.
and this is good. I mean, this there's an old saying, you know, can't teach an old dog new tricks, and I'll go out on a limb. I'm an old dog, but I'm open to learning new tricks. And Jeremy, I'm not going to pinpoint how old you are, but you're clearly younger than I am. And that's a good thing. And I think it's very important for our fellow small business owners to be open to this concept that, again, times are changing, industries are changing, technology is changing. We talk a lot in previous episodes how, you know, not to pick on Peggy, but how mailing list and that sort of avenue was very viable at one point, and how the collection of data from just the technology element has changed how we go about doing that. I mean, there's some root elements that are basically the same. I mean, data is data. We got to collect certain things, but how we go about do it, how we manipulate it, how we interpret it, and how we deploy it, that's really where the technology is happening a lot faster. So do me a favor, talk from a consumer standpoint, from a business owner, what might be some of the avenues, you know, I guess tell us a little bit about the digital side of things first. I mean, there's print, there's radio, there's TV. What does it look like now to be in your space? What are we talking about? Give us kind of paint a picture for the people listening.
Yeah, that's a great question. To give you more a specific answer. So I work mainly in the paid advertisement side. So like I work with your Facebook posts. Like if you see an ad on Facebook, if it's moving, like I work with a GIF, I'll work with just a banner ad. I do video ads. We also do what's called OTT, which stands for OTT or CTV. So OTT stands for over the top TV or over the top. And then CTV is connected TV. They're pretty much the exact same thing. Think of Hulu and Roku, like a smart TV. You know how you'll receive an ad on those. If you have like a free service subscription, you'll receive an ad. Like this is a paid advertisement before you see the screen or the viewing. That is type of stuff I work in. I do YouTube as well. Google, YouTube, anything that is in the digital advertisement space, I do for sure.
Okay, so just to kind of circle back around to the genealogy of this stuff, you know, where we talked about before, newsprint, newspapers and magazines were the rage because of technology. That's what allowed us. You had subscribers. I could take a subscription to Field and Stream, for example, or Home and Garden, and it would be delivered to my house, and someone would have been out there selling those ads where I'm flipping through the pages and looking at them. But now, of course, we don't do that anymore. I mean, people don't receive, for the most part, that sort of print medium anymore. But we're on these devices, you know, our phones, which is basically a computer, a bigger computer than they flew to the moon with, I think. And we're all doing everything from checking our emails. Are you in planning stuff in emails too? Can you do that?
As far as like email marketing?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yes.
Like when you open up your Google or whoever you're using, your Gmail, whatever it is, sometimes you'll see ads pop through there. I guess anywhere it shows up on a digital format, you're there.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay. So I'm all over the place. I got a couple of questions. I know I'm a YouTube person, and we're on YouTube, and I spend some time at night watching some of my little favorite channels, people living out in the woods, building cabins and stuff. And I've noticed, let me take a little sidebar here real quick, Jeremy. I've noticed the consumer was very sophisticated at dumping ads. You know, the ad would come on and you have that little screen that says, skip ad. Now, I imagine there were a lot of consumers that were hitting the button, skip an ad, but I've noticed the ad agencies or the ad industry has now got a little button that says this show or this episode will complete after the ad. And so there must be a concerted effort to keep the consumer engaged longer than giving them the ultimate to say skip ad. So I'm wondering, is there a price differential in that offering? You know, could I purchase something through you guys that, well, Mr. Theus, it's going to cost you this if you allow the guy to skip the ad, but it's going to cost you this if they're made to watch the whole thing. So I mean, give us a little philosophy. Is that what's going on, or what's happening?
Yeah, so good question, good observation. There's different types of what's called inventory within a platform. So, for example, you're talking about skippable ads versus non-skippable ads. YouTube has typically what's three types. So they have what's called a bumper ad, which is about a 6-second ad that plays before film. You don't have enough time to skip it because there's no need. It's only 6 seconds. So it just plays through and then you're done. Then you see the video you're looking for. Then you have a non-skippable ad, which is kind of what you're referring to when it says, this ad, this whatever will continue after this ad's played through. Those are typically 30 seconds, I believe. And those will play through. Those are more expensive. However, it depends. So like CPM is typically what we call that. And that stands for cost per mil. And the mil actually means 1,000 impressions. So if you're familiar with impressions, a mil means that. So it's cost per 1,000 impressions, but it's known as CPM. So there's non-skippable, which is the ones that you can't skip. And then there's skippable, which has that little button that pops up after 5-6 seconds. The relevance of the ad at that point will be determined by the person viewing. So if they're not thinking this is relevant to them, they hit skip. And you can see that on the back end information, you can see, okay, most of the people saw 25% of the video, which is probably right as they hit the skip button. And then you can see X amount of people, maybe it's like out of 50,000, 10,000 actually watched 50 to 75% of the ad. You can get all that information. That kind of gives you a better idea of how many people in this audience think this video is relevant to them. So that's the type of information I digest, figure out if we're actually hitting the right kind of people with the right type of ad and getting the best cost.
Wow. So we talk about in my coaching efforts with clients about maximizing their efforts, being efficient use of energy, dollars, time, and so forth. And I'm just going to keep referencing back to the print media advertising. I did a little bit of that after college, selling some print media, and it was always about, our book stays on the coffee table in the doctor's office longer.
Sure.
The average wait in the doctor's office is 35 minutes, and we're going to get so many pages turned. Obviously, the front of the book is better than the back of the book, but there's no analytics in that era that shows me how long were that person's eyes on my page, and if they were at all. And what you're telling me is, because of this digital landscape that we're in, we're able to take, you guys can see right through the screen to see how long I'm on the page. Theoretically, I guess I could step away, get some coffee, then come back and hit the skip screen. But I mean, this data evaluation is by far more critical than it ever was before. And so speak to, this, you touched on it, the strategy piece of what you do. How does that, how are you working with a client to best understand their cost per thousand, cost per mil, the effectiveness of the ad? Do you coach them on how to get their message in sooner and earlier so they don't get skipped out? I mean, give us a little bit of a day in the life as how that works with a client.
Yeah, great question. It really honestly comes down to where are the goals. And it really depends on what kind of client and what industry they're in. For example, a plumber probably is in a industry that is highly saturated. There's probably a lot of plumbers around. So you have to adapt to that. To go further on what you're saying though, specifically how I tackle these things, probably would be more on the figuring out what they're trying to accomplish. So is it a profit margin? Is it more customer, new leads? Is it prospecting? You really have to figure out what you're trying to do first. And then after that, you decide where's the best platform to first approach this. Is it Facebook? There's different types of targeting you can do. So I use Facebook, and I use what's called a programmatic platform, which is on the open internet. Think you go to a website and you see banner ads at like a cooking recipe, and there's all those ads on the sides. Those are programmatic ads, and I do that as well. And that's a different type of audience. You can get more direct with that platform. Google, ironically, interestingly enough, you can only do what's called like topical and like demographic based targeting. So, and geo. So think of a parameter of zip codes, or like you drop a pin and it's in this area. It's not as targeted. So if you want more coverage, a lot of people do use Google, obviously. I think it's like somewhere around 95% of the internet is the search engine used is Google. So it fluctuates, but it's around 90 to 95%. So a lot of people. So Google is great, but it's less targeted. So you just have to be aware of that. So budget, goals, type of audience, and the industry are big, in my opinion, for that. But there are things you can do that will help us understand. And I'll go in on the background. So I typically do an audit on the website, on their social media. I try to understand everything about what the person's doing. What kind of people do they engage with now? What kind of people are they trying to engage with sooner? Do they even know what that is? And you just have to ask all those questions. And then if you don't know, we will help you figure it out, because the cool part about marketing and the work we do is if it doesn't work, you know that for the rest of your life and your business's life, that this type of audience does not work. So that you can just scratch that out and move on to the next type of people you might be interested in your product or service. Does that kind of give you more of a better idea?
Yeah, we talk about, and I want to get Peggy in here for a minute if she's got a question coming up. We talk about all the time, you got to know who your customer is. I mean, right. I spend a lot of time, and what you're telling me is you ask a lot of questions and you listen. You know, I was talking to someone the other day and I said, you know, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, because listening is more important than us talking. So you got to know who your customer is, and you got to know, you know, I try to help my clients create an avatar. You know, what does this person look like? You know, are they male? Are they female? Are they, you know, whatever the demographics come down to. And you never get a perfect, because people are different, obviously, but I mean, the more information you can gather, the more information you can ascertain about who your current customer is, it gives you some real touch points on how to go out and find more of those people. And they're out there walking around, you know, they're going to Publix, or they're going to the movies, or whatever they're doing. You can find them. But the overwhelming thing, the overriding principle, is they've all got one of these. They've all got a cell phone or a computer where they're most likely going to have a chance to see. So case in point, are they all subscribers to Horse and Hound? There's an old joke there. Are they all subscribers to Field and Stream? Now, there's some people, you know, I don't want to pick on plumbers, but there could be industry specific people where my customers are more Field and Stream oriented, you know, or more home and garden oriented. But with the computer and the digital aspect of things, it sounds like we have a better chance of catching more of your market in a space. It's still the same dynamic. You got to know who your market is. You got to know who your customer is, so then you can custom tailor a solution to what you're going to do. Peggy, do you have anything that comes to mind that you're thinking about?
Well, certainly, yes. I was at one point I was selling radio commercials, and as I listen to Jeremy, I'm hearing similarities. And I guess, Jeremy, do you actually sell commercials along with guiding your clients? So you create and sell the commercials?
Yeah, correct. We handle everything. So we do content creation as well. I don't personally create stuff. You don't want to see the type of advertisements I would create, but we have professional people that work for us that do that. And I will give them a brief on what the clients communicate with me or our other sales team. We have a strategist that typically handles that, but I help along the strategist with the more complex strategies that they're trying to do. So I'm more strategic. So we'll get that brief. They'll get it, whether it's a video, like a static, or like, when I say static, it's just an ad that doesn't move. And they'll get that brief. We'll create a copy. We'll send it to the client. They'll see it, and then we'll implement that. So that could be on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I've even done ads on Reddit. So we definitely have a full portfolio of platforms we can utilize, and we have a team that implements them at a professional level, for sure.
Do you advertise your own company on all the social media sites that you're talking about?
We do occasionally or have. I don't know if we're currently, but we definitely do for sure. We use the products we sell.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
How, but you said a couple things in my head. You have to rein it all in. You said a static ad. Just clarify that real quick. Is that just, well, in the old days in the print business, we called that a tombstone. It was just
Okay.
not like a tombstone. It wasn't real sexy. I mean, it was just the facts. This is who we are. This is our phone number and our address. If you want to reach out to us, you can.
Yeah, pretty similar. I don't have an example. I wish I now did in front of me, but think of an image of a person. Let's say they're in construction. They're wearing like a construction hat, and then it says, Jeremy E's construction company, call me at this number, blah, blah, blah. And it just doesn't move. Think of that type of an ad. Yeah, that's what I mean by static. Something doesn't move, general info. It's kind of like a banner.
I guess still ad.
What's that? Yeah, still ad. Exactly. Yeah.
And on that note, I know the answer, I think, but obviously personal engagement from the consumer side, which one drives more engagement?
As far as, I'm sorry.
Well, let's move. You mentioned static versus movement. Is there a style that you're seeing and this thing changes almost daily, probably. There's some trending that obviously goes along with it, but what's happening now that people are really getting the engagement numbers out of?
Great question. Depends on industry. I'd say for nonprofits, politicians, things like that, video all day, because you have a story, you have something you're trying to tell, you have limited time to do it, and a video is the best way to do it for sure. It's the most attention grabbing, and it's just the most effective for engagement for sure. And I typically run 15-second for those. 15 to 30 are your best times. I do get ads that are like 2 minutes long. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of people have a lot to say, and that's totally fine, but you're just most likely going to see a lower engagement after that 30-second mark, typically.
Sure.
I don't want to spend too much on this next comment, but it's amazing, this bandwidth that we all have. What I've discovered is, I don't know that we're all so busy or we're all distracted. I think there's somewhat of a combination going on, but I mean, to think our time span of attention span is, I mean, what's the sweet spot for a video? You said 15 seconds or a minute?
I push 15 seconds typically. Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing in our daily life that's so important that we can't, look, I'm not throwing stones. I'm the first guy to hit that skip ad button or because I'm watching my show. But then again, if it's an ad, the Patriot food guy, the guy that's selling all the world's coming to an end food supply, I've noticed I'm watching him and the power supply, not because I think the world's coming to an end, but it's like, oh, okay, this is interesting. It's somewhat entertaining. But it's funny how our needs and desires change, and it's predicated on, you can see it on the back end by what we're watching and tuning into or not. It's like, this is not getting any traction. But from a business standpoint, from a business owner standpoint, how incredibly important it is to be able to validate these assumptions of what's working and what's not. I mean, ultimately, we can see what's working when the cash register, the till rings, but
exactly,
to be able to find out where that came from. I mean, I talk to my clients every day about, hey, we're having great success, Dave. This things are happening. I'm like, well, where's it coming from? I don't know. People are just calling. You got to start asking where your customers are finding you. What's working and what's not.
Right.
I've had 2 cups of coffee.
Yeah, you're good. And I don't think I quite answered this question I think you asked earlier, and that was kind of the difference between audio, radio, audio type ads versus what I'm doing. I think the big difference between what digital advertisements I do is they're measurable. Pretty much everything I can do, everything I do is measurable, at least to some degree. When you're working with a billboard, TV ad, audio, there's less points that you can connect the dots with. So I can tell you, this many people watched the video. This many people clicked on the video. This many people went to the website after the video. I can give you like kind of before and action reports in a way. Whereas if you just do a linear TV, I know out of 10,000 households, there are possibly 15,000 people that live in these households. And I'm just going to assume, I think they use like TRPs and things like that as their measurement tools. And I can assume that since the ad played in this household at this TV, and there might be 4 people in there, I just take all 4 people, even though if it might be 1. So TV is kind of misleading in a lot of ways. There might be more, they might have had a party, who knows? But with digital marketing, I'm able to get more measurable. I know I can target the person, not just the household. So now I can't target, like I have a list of people that's in Joe Smith. I know for a fact, I can't say that because you get into like a whole bunch of privacy things, and that's something I don't want to handle. But I can say Joe Smith and 1,000, 10,000 other people on my list, one of them saw it at least. Does that kind of make more sense? And I can go from there.
It does. I want to say one thing and then pinpoint you on a question.
Yeah.
Which may be uncomfortable for me to know the answer, but that's okay. So I had a client in my financial services advisory role for years who wanted to get in the restaurant business. And of course I told him, don't do it. You'll lose all your money.
Okay.
And he did, by the way. I'll give you the end of the story. He did. But he was really doing his due diligence on marketing research and where to place the restaurant. And he took, it was over on Blanding Boulevard.
Okay.
I won't give too much more information about who it was and that sort of thing. But it was on Blanding Boulevard, and he found a space that met his budget for the most part. His overhead, he was able to back enter the numbers and see this is how much he could pay for rent. And then he did he had some traffic information from DOT, Department of Transportation, that showed that 7 billion cars drove down past his shop on Blanding Boulevard. And this was, if anyone doesn't know who Blanding Boulevard is, for those that are listening in some other part of the world, just imagine a major thoroughfare where people either ride on the way to work or they ride on the way home to work. And in Clay County, where I live, it's a two-way street. In the morning, they're going to work, and in the afternoon, they're coming home. Well, he wanted to be on the coming home side, which he did. So he said, this is the spot. There's 600,000 cars going by me from the time of 3 o'clock until whatever the time is in the afternoon. And so I asked him, we'll call him Bob. Okay, you're getting a lot of traffic, definitely, that's going by, but what are they doing from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock? Well, they're driving by my place. Are they turning in? Well, they will as soon as they see the sign that I've got this restaurant. Or are they trying to get home? Is it work is over, and is the grocery store, where is the Publix in space where you are? Is it before where you are, or is it after where you are? Well, why is that important? Well, put yourself in their shoes. If I want to come home from work and I've got to stop off to get something to pick up for my husband or wife, my priorities might be stop at Publix and not even just blow right past you. Well, he didn't want to hear anything about that. All he was hung up on was the numbers. There were 600,000 cars. I'm going to get, if I get 1% of them, I'm going to hang the moon. Well, he's out of business. So that goes back to the old billboard guys. Billboards were sold basically on traffic flow. You could drive down I-75, on the way from Orlando to Atlanta, and see these giant billboards where there's 10 billion cars going by them. But, if the technology is such now that we're able to investigate who's looking at. So here's my question that's maybe uncomfortable. Help us with the mechanics. How are you able to differentiate who's looking? I know you said that you couldn't pinpoint Joe Smith or Bill Smith because let's just say there's a computer in the house and multiple users use the computer. So we don't know if it's Jane Doe or Bob Doe or the kids looking at it, but we have a cell phone address. Maybe you could kind of speak to a little bit. And I'm assuming if Jane Doe owns a cell phone, for the large proportion of the time, Jane's looking at the phone. So help us a little bit with the mechanics, what's going on technology wise and how you're able to identify these people.
Sure. I think for a majority of clients we work with, there's kind of a general strategy. If they don't know their audience, well, I'm going to use an example, if that's okay. I'm going to use real estate and maybe mortgage brokers as a good example.
Please.
There are audiences already built on platforms that are called third-party audiences, and they're either interest or consumer-based audiences. And there's tons of different ways that people collect that data. We work with a firm that actually creates audience segmentation. So they actually go out, they will either knock on doors or like make phone calls and do like survey phone calls and ask these people, hey, in an area like of these 5 questions, which one's relevant, what not. They'll ask these survey questions, and that's how they create some of these audiences to get that information. Experian, believe it or not, is actually a big audience producer. They actually have a ton of different audiences that marketers can use to target. So if I'm working with a real estate agent, they're looking for people that are in the market. They're looking for people at a certain budget point. They work in the 150,000 to 400,000 real estate range, and they're looking for people that are interested in mortgages that go with that. So we will say, let's say it's Clay County or something. Let's say it's it's smaller. It's Green Cove. It's only Green Cove. We can use the zip codes of Green Cove, target that, and layer this audience on top of that to only find people that are searching in this area, that live in this area, that are looking for a new house. We can really break it down to target a specific type of person. And those people typically end up being, if Joe Schmo is trying to find a house in Green Cove, they live across the street, they're looking for they're in this median income range or price range that they're trying to find, typically they'll see that ad because they're relevant for that. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, let me go one more layer. You said that the phone calls and developing the audience, but is there, in identifying Joe Schmo who's looking for an area, is part of that data collected because we're able to access what he's searching for via the internet? Is there some kickback to that?
Sure. I think you're trying to figure out how much do we already know, kind of thing.
Well, let me set the stage. So a couple months ago, I have kind of large hands, and the writing instrument that I use is critical to be comfortable. And so an off the shelf pen, albeit great, but after a while I'll get fatigued. It hurts my hands. And years ago, sure, I found this back when writing instruments were the thing. People were walking around with Mont Blancs in their pockets. I fell in love with a now I can't remember the name of the damn pen. It's French. It's not a Mont Blanc. Oh gosh, how embarrassing. But anyway, it was $49 back then. Now it's about 78, anywhere from 70 to 150 bucks for the pen. I have not purchased one because I'm like, no, I'll smoke a $7 cigar, but I'm not buying a $150 pen. Anyway, so I did a quick search on Google for this pen. Well, for the next 6 months, every time I open up a site, there's like, these pens that are everywhere. What's going on? What's happening?
Well, yeah, it could be, there's a lot of variables. Did you click on the website when you looked up the pen?
Well, of course.
Okay.
So it's a cookie they're putting out there, right?
Maybe it's a cookie. It's creating relevant ads. And I don't know if you heard about the cookieless future, but you're probably being retargeted, what's called retargeted, which means you clicked on a website or you went to a website about this specific pen, and you got put into a special audience within that organization or similar organizations, and you were interested in this product at this point in time. It's typically what's called a window of time. It's like a floodlight window. So it could be anywhere from, they'll start showing you the ads either a day after you clicked on the relevant information, or maybe it's 7 days, and they'll do a floodlight, and it can be up to, I believe, 180 days. So for the next 6 months, you probably got those ads. So you got put into a group of people that they're trying to get you to buy the product, right? So they're like, oh, this person was interested. Let's get them back into the marketing funnel of, oh, they had awareness. Let's try to persuade them again to actually convert. So a conversion in this case is buying the product. So they're trying to put you back in that funnel to keep you interested.
And one more from a pseudo engineering mind. How does that work?
Okay.
How does it happen?
As far as like,
can you speak to the, okay, so I clicked on the website. I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, and it registers my address that I was there somehow, my computer's address.
Yeah, so it's probably connected to your Gmail, if I had to guess, something along those lines.
Yeah,
there's a ton of different identifiers, and quite honestly, I don't know them all to be able to speak to it, but you have personal identifiers, user profiles that are all associated with each other, whether it's your phone. So the actual digital marketing world tries to share data, and if you really got to know, it's a whole bunch of different languages talking to each other. So Facebook communicates with a list of people I give it differently than another platform would. So it's like ABC versus XYZ, and they try to connect these two different languages with consistencies. So, oh, A here is actually the same as Y down here. That's the same phone number. I can connect the dots. This is the same person. So it gets really complex. Honestly, there's like millions of billions of these transactions occurring constantly. So to answer your question, they're all associating these different relevant things to you as a user. And that's how they're able to connect the dots. Does that make sense?
It does, and I don't want to go down a Snowden conversation.
So, we can,
no,
but I will not be able to keep it.
No, I understand, and that's not my angle. I'm just that's my mind goes into overdrive sometimes like that.
Sure.
Okay, Peggy, I don't want to. Do you have a question that's popped up, Peggy? Or I know that you're listening like I am too.
Yeah, just kind of a thought. So Jeremy, this sounds like a very specific business model. Is there actually any competition? Are there people out there starting to get into that same business? Is that growing?
As far as digital marketing?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Pretty competitive, I would say. We are kind of a bigger firm to be. I'll share kind of like an industry standard where we're at, and then where you're going to probably look for more boutique type options. So with a marketing firm such as us, we're about around 200-ish employees throughout the country.
Oh.
I do work in California. I do work here locally. I kind of all over the place. But so we have everything in-house. We typically try to do. So like I say, kind of graphic design, we do implementation, we do web development. We have web developers that actually create websites for people regularly and monitor those websites. Copywriting, we monitor social media accounts. So like the organic posting, we typically, for example, one of the things we try to do is get the actual social media account of the client as with us, as well as doing the paid ads, because we'll try to make the organic content similar to the paid ads. We get a lot of clients that just do paid ads, and they don't think, oh man, the Facebook page I'm sending these people has no content. Maybe that's a bad thing. So then we have to like help guide clients through that type of process. And even if they don't use our services, we still try to explain to them, hey, you should be still trying to post regularly relevant content to what you're doing paid. Because if someone clicks on a paid ad and they go to your Facebook page or your website and there's not much relevant content that was associated with that ad, they're going to leave. They're not going to be interested. So we try to walk clients through that type of process. And this is nothing, no one's dumb or uneducated in this area. It's just way more information than I work in this industry. I have to know it. We try to bring those questions and those guidelines to light for a lot of customers. So we work with tons of different levels of companies, anywhere from Fortune 5 companies to local yoga companies. We have a yoga company we work with in Jacksonville. So we all levels, and we have different people that kind of worked more on the specialized side. So to that effect, that's kind of more what we do versus kind of smaller boutique. There's probably tons of marketing companies. I would implore you to maybe check around. When I say you, as in like just a general person listening to this, I would call those boutiques, ask them what they offer. I would really probe some questions, maybe do a little research if you're really interested in this. Don't be afraid to get on a prospecting, like just a call with them, because many people need marketing. There are a lot of different companies. I definitely try to find one the right fit with your goals in mind. We try to give people proposals and show them what we're actually going to do for them. So we write everything out. We show them exactly how we're going to do it, the timeline we're going to accomplish it, and then also the different price points that we're going to offer. So we typically offer an ABC, or a good, better, best option, to give them a different look, not just like, here's our only price, this is the only thing we can work with. We try to show them every level of that and what we offer with that. So boutiques might be cheaper, but they most likely don't have everything in-house. They're probably going to have to outsource for graphic design. They might not even have a web development team. They might only do organic social. They may not even do paid ads. We work specifically in that area, and it becomes more than just boosting a post on Facebook. So I get that question. I get that question a lot. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up, is boosting posts. How strong is it? I personally do not boost posts. It can be relevant at times. Really, really specific times for me that I will be like, yeah, we will throw $1,000 on a boosted post. But most of the time, your paid advertisements are more targeted. You can just use more tools that Facebook and these other platforms give you if you do your posts as like a paid advertisement. There's not much difference as far as the look of the post. I can even use something that a video someone posted a week ago as a paid advertisement.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea, that's the kind of knowledge and work we do to try and walk clients through.
Okay.
But definitely talk to other ones. There's tons of boutique. There's tons of other giant agencies to work with. I think it really depends on price point and goals. If it's just organic stuff, you're trying to look for that direct contact. I have a following of 500 people. They actually kind of engage with my content a lot. I'm just looking for someone to run my social media account, so that way I can continue to grow that. Then definitely reach out to us, reach out to maybe a local business that does the exact same thing, and try to figure out long-term, because that's the other thing. Marketing is not the short game. I want to explain that explicitly. Marketing is not, you do it for a month, like SEO, you do it for a month and then, oh, I'm good for the rest of the next decade. Really not the case. It's the long-term investment. It's really paid out for a lot of companies and organizations that do it long-term. There's an investment there as far as like, maybe it's just, I want to do a like campaign. Okay, great. After you gained 10,000 likes, or well, 10,000 follows. That's really what I want to say on your page. That audience is with you forever. As long as, they don't leave your page. If you keep doing engagement, that audience is with you, and you can directly advertise to that audience. These are things that you got to really think through investment wise. Like, what's the best strategy for me? Long-term, short-term, where are my goals at? What am I trying to do? Am I trying to grow? Am I trying to maintain? Am I trying to find a new customer? Those are like things you really have to think through and justify to yourself what's worth doing. So definitely figure out what type of firm you're looking for. There's plenty of them out there. Unfortunately, I'm not going to lie to you about that. But one thing that really differentiates us is we actually target very specifically, and we try to show that we try to reach people. And that kind of comes from our background of actually trying, I have to say it now, David, but the firm I work for was created specializing in voter and political type stuff. So reach is the most important thing to anyone. especially to a business, in my opinion. And we've used that business model for all of our brand clients as well. It's been very successful, and it's very different than actually majority of what digital marketers do. So surprisingly, but it's been very successful, and we're continuing to grow in that field for sure.
I think the messaging is comparable. I mean, whether you're
For
talking
sure.
about the genesis or the growing up of your firm in a political atmosphere, it's about messaging, as we hear all the time. It's about storytelling. It's about relaying a message and selling ultimately a product.
Exactly.
And whether you're a political campaign or you're a non-for-profit or a consumer-based product or service, there's no really differentiation. There's a service, a story, and a product.
Exactly. No, for sure. And relevance.
So I think, yeah, and I think those are all comparable identifiers and commonalities, if you will. And I really I want our listeners to hear this, and my clients, our clients, members of our group. I'm always talking about a shotgun approach, or pulling a precise arrow or out of your quiver, or being a surgeon and using a scalpel. I think the days of old, just because there wasn't any technology that would allow us to gather this information, it was not uncommon to pull the 12 gauge out, load it with a couple bird shot, and just fire away. And hopefully, well, there's enough pellets going in the air, I'm going to hit something. Or today's world allows us to pull that arrow. We may not be hitting as many, we may not fire as many arrows as the bird shot, but the arrows will find their target because we'll know who we're looking for. And so that precision, precise approach is by far, cost per unit. I'm all about cost per unit, or cost per mil, as you're talking about. If I'm hitting a target rich setting, I've got a by far better chance to catch the fish in the barrel. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what we're after. So what may be perceived as more expensive versus less expensive, not cheap, but less expensive, I'll give you a little coaching there, is relative. I mean, if I'm in a target rich environment and I'm spending twice as much as I would, or 3 times as much, or 10 times as much as I would in some other medium, and I'm landing the target and landing the consumer or the prospect, then my cost per unit is going to be less ultimately, because I'm landing more, more targets. So I think that's awesome. It's a new trick for old dogs, and I encourage each of us, old and young, to be open to this concept. And I know the young folks seem to get from the millennials on down, they get to seem to get target, whether it's those kids, they're just kids. Well, you know what, old folks, these kids are pretty smart, and I don't know, I don't want to necessarily be the guy who gives them all the credit for it, but they're in that space working all the time and using the tools and shaping the technology. It's morphing along the way because it's getting used and it's getting success. And so I think we'd be foolish not to be aware of this, first of all, and then be open to the concept of this is a reality. And whether you choose, if you're going to spend your dollars to do this sort of effort, you better get the biggest bang for your buck. Okay. Well, I think this is a kind of a good stopping point. What do you guys think?
I think so.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions for me?
Well, yeah, this is that transition period where I've got to get better at, cutting people off, but I'm hoping I'm doing a little bit better job of that. Peggy, I do want to make sure I get Peggy a message in for a second though, but Jeremy, how can people reach you? You're going to give me some information to put in the show notes afterwards, like a website, maybe an email. I don't know if you want to put your phone number out there, but what's the best way, Jeremy, for people to find you?
It'd probably be via email. And then I can definitely give you that information.
Okay. So we can put the name of the firm, the website, and your email.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So Jeremy Eaton, and I believe you're on LinkedIn as well, right, Jeremy? If someone wanted to reach out to you. So I think you're under Jeremy Tyler Eaton on LinkedIn. Is that right?
Probably. Yeah.
You've got one of those names that might be a couple of them out there. So you probably had to supplement I assume that's your middle name.
Trying to say I'm not original?
No, you are the original. You are the OG.
Thank you.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you, Jeremy, first of all, for being a part of this and taking a chance on us. I think you've shared great information, even though I think we're probably at 10,000 feet. But here's a chance for someone to reach out to you and your team to find out how they can, what I talk about is a customized, tailored solution to what their needs are. And I like the fact that you really honed in on listening. You got to listen to your customer, your prospect, understand their needs and concerns, and then tailor that solution. So stay with me, Jeremy, just for a second. Peggy, I want to give you, we've kind of put it in reverse order. Introduce yourself and in your firm. And if you got a quick story that you can share, something that's happened to you this week or recently to help your customers understand about what your services are.
Okay, 21K Promotions. And as a branding specialist, I offer branded merchandise to be used in hundreds of different ways. And Jeremy's shaking his head so he recognizes what I do.
Oh.
You're handing out at an event, you're handing out items at an event, or you're thanking a client, you're trying to look for new clients, you have an awards program, a safety program. So promotional products are used in all those areas. So that's what I do. And I don't have a specific story right now. I will say that I've had some nice successes this past week.
Good. All right. Well, we like those. And again, I'll put Peggy's information, her website and email contact information in the show notes. Jeremy, Peggy, thank you so much again for this opportunity. This is Saturday morning, by the way, guys, June 25th, 2022. And we started pretty much in real time at 9 o'clock this morning. So, wow, 50 minutes. We want to get out of here because we know people don't stay on more than 15 seconds. So hopefully they'll be enticed longer to stay on to this one and watch it all the way through. Of course, me saying it now means nothing because no one's tuned in anymore, but we'll see. Again, my name is David Theus. We are the Small Business Patriot. This is the Saturday morning coaching call brought to you by the Small Business Patriot and Northeast Florida Business Alliance, AKA the Alliance. And guys, have a great rest of your weekend, a prosperous week. And as I always say, stay vigilant, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Jeremy. Bye-bye.